A humble girl rescues a lost child and reveals she is the CEO's daughter, an impressive twist. The Manhattan Supreme Court fell silent as 4-year-old Sophia Thorne took her tiny steps toward the witness stand. Even the afternoon sunlight streaming through the towering windows seemed to hold its breath. Judge Eleanor Martinez leaned forward, her expression softening as she observed the child clutching a worn butterfly plush toy. "Hello, Sophia," the judge spoke gently. "Do you know why you're here today?" Sophia's storm-grey eyes, so like her mother's, scanned the courtroom before finding Livia Martinez and her father, Lucas Thorne, seated in the front row. Drawing strength from their presence, she nodded. "To tell the truth about my family," she answered, her small voice carrying clearly through the hushed chamber. "And who is your family, sweetheart?" Charlotte Pierce shifted in her designer suit at the plaintiff's table, a practiced maternal smile fixed on her perfect features. But Sophia wasn't looking at her mother. "My daddy," Sophia began, hugging her butterfly closer, "and Livia. They're the ones who chase away my nightmares and help me grow butterflies, and never ever leave." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "They're my real family because they choose me every day." A sharp intake of breath from Charlotte's direction. The gallery erupted in whispers. "Order," Judge Martinez commanded softly, though her eyes never left Sophia's face. "And your mother, Sophia." The child's lower lip trembled slightly, but her voice remained clear. "Mummy only comes when she wants to hurt Daddy's company. She doesn't love me like real family does." The courtroom exploded. Charlotte's legal team leapt to their feet in protest. Photographers' cameras clicked rapidly despite the court's strict no-photo policy. But above the chaos, Sophia continued speaking, her truth pouring out like a river breaking through a dam. "Real family builds butterfly gardens to make you smile. Real family stays up all night when you're scared. Real family," she looked directly at Charlotte for the first time. "Real family doesn't try to make you choose." Judge Martinez raised her hand for silence, but the damage or perhaps the healing was already done. In the gallery, Livia wiped tears from her eyes while Lucas gripped her hand tightly. Their journey to this moment had begun 6 months earlier on a crisp autumn afternoon in Central Park, when a lost little girl followed a butterfly and found something far more precious than her way home. She found her real family. But the path to this courtroom had been paved with sacrifice, betrayal, and a love strong enough to weather the fiercest storms. It was a story of butterfly gardens and midnight fears, of corporate manipulation and primal maternal instincts, of a community coming together to protect one of their own. Above all, it was a story about the true meaning of family, not the one you're born into, but the one you build with love, trust, and the courage to choose each other every single day. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Central Park as Livia Martinez wiped down another table at the Coffee Bean, her shoulders aching from a double shift. At 25, she had mastered the art of hiding exhaustion behind a smile, but today's endless stream of demanding customers had tested even her legendary patience. "Hey, your shift ended 10 minutes ago," called out Rachel, her supervisor, from behind the counter. "Get out of here before I start feeling guilty." Livia's fingers instinctively reached for the worn acceptance letter in her apron pocket, her ticket to night classes at the local community college. Every extra minute meant additional tips, and every dollar brought her closer to making her mother's sacrifices worth something. "You sure?" Livia asked, already untying her apron. The prospect of an actual break, however brief, was too tempting to resist. "Absolutely. Besides, when's the last time you actually saw daylight?" Rachel's knowing smile carried the weight of shared struggles. "Go enjoy your afternoon off." 15 minutes later, Livia found herself wandering through the park's winding paths, savoring the rare pleasure of having nowhere to be. October had painted the trees in brilliant shades of amber and crimson, and a gentle breeze carried the promise of coming winter. For once she allowed herself to simply exist in the moment, free from the constant pressure of deadlines and responsibilities. The peaceful solitude shattered at the sound of quiet sniffling. Livia paused, scanning the area until she spotted a small figure huddled beneath a massive oak tree. A little girl, no more than 4 years old, sat with her knees pulled tight against her chest, tears streaming down her cherubic face. Livia approached carefully, her heart clenching at the sight of the child's obvious distress. "Hi there, sweetheart. Are you okay?" The little girl looked up, revealing eyes the color of summer storms. Despite her tears, there was an intelligence in her gaze that struck Livia immediately. "I can't find my nanny," she whispered, her lower lip trembling. Crouching down to the child's level, Livia offered a gentle smile. "That must be scary. I'm Livia. What's your name?" Sophia, the girl's voice gained strength as she studied Livia's face. "Daddy says I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, but you don't look scary." A small laugh escaped Livia's lips. "Your daddy's right about being careful. How about we find a police officer or park security to help us look for your nanny? They're the best people to help in situations like this." Sophia nodded, then suddenly reached for Livia's hand with complete trust. The simple gesture sent an unexpected wave of protectiveness through Livia. Sophia's tiny fingers were cold, and her expensive dress bore traces of dirt and grass stains, clear signs she'd been sitting there for a while. Little did Livia know that this chance encounter would set in motion events that would challenge everything she believed about love, trust, and the power of unexpected connections. "Sophia," a man's commanding voice cut through the air. Livia turned to see a tall figure striding toward them, his expensive suit at odds with the casual park setting. Everything about him radiated authority, from his perfectly styled dark hair to his Italian leather shoes. But it was the panic in his eyes that caught Livia's attention, raw, unfiltered fear briefly breaking through his composed exterior. Daddy, Sophia's face lit up, but she didn't release Livia's hand. Lucas Thorne reached them in 3 long strides, immediately kneeling to check his daughter for injuries. "Are you hurt? What happened? Where's Mrs. Peterson?" "I'm fine, Daddy. Livia found me when I was lost." Sophia beamed up at Livia, who suddenly felt very conscious of her coffee-stained work shoes and second-hand jacket. Lucas stood slowly, his initial relief hardening into suspicion as he assessed Livia. "And you are?" "Livia Martinez." "I found Sophia alone by the oak trees. We were just heading to park security to get help." She met his gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated by his obvious wealth or the way his eyes narrowed at her explanation. "And you didn't think to call the police immediately?" His tone carried an edge that made Sophia press closer to Livia's side. "I was following park protocol. Security stations are equipped to handle lost children and can coordinate with police if needed." Livia kept her voice professional, drawing on years of customer service experience. "They also have direct access to the park camera system, which might help locate Sophia's nanny." Something flickered in Lucas's expression at the mention of the nanny. He pulled out his phone, finger hovering over the screen. "Mrs. Peterson isn't answering her phone. I had to leave an important meeting when the school called saying Sophia never arrived for her afternoon activities." "The butterfly was really pretty," Daddy, Sophia offered quietly, her earlier guilt returning. "Mrs. Peterson didn't see it because she was texting again." Lucas's jaw tightened, and Livia could almost see the gears turning in his head, weighing liability issues, calculating risks, probably already planning to hire a new nanny. But there was something else in his expression too, something that tugged at Livia's heart, the look of a man realizing how easily he could have lost everything that truly mattered. "Thank you," he finally said, the words seemingly dragged from somewhere deep inside him, "for helping my daughter." Livia nodded, carefully extracting her hand from Sophia's grip. "Of course. Anyone would have done the same." She smiled down at Sophia. "Remember what we talked about, no more following butterflies without telling someone first. Okay." Sophia launched herself forward, wrapping her arms around Livia's waist in a fierce hug. "Promise. Thank you for finding me." Over Sophia's head, Livia caught Lucas's gaze again. For a moment, his carefully constructed facade cracked, revealing a glimpse of the terror he must have felt upon learning his daughter was missing. Then it was gone, replaced by the smooth mask of a man accustomed to controlling every situation. Through the frosted glass door of the Thorne townhouse, Livia made out a woman's silhouette 1 month after the park incident. When she opened the door, she found herself face to face with someone whose features were startlingly familiar. She'd seen them reflected in Sophia's storm-grey eyes. "I'm here to see my daughter," the woman announced, her designer coat gleaming with evening rain. "I'm Charlotte Pierce, Sophia's mother." Livia's heart rate doubled, but her voice remained steady. "Mr. Thorne is in a business call. Sophia's already in bed." Charlotte's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "And you are?" "Livia Martinez, Sophia's nanny." Another one. Charlotte's laugh held no warmth. "Well, I won't be long. I just need to see my daughter." "I'm sorry, but I can't let you in. Mr. Thorne hasn't authorized any visits, and Sophia is asleep." "I don't need authorization to see my own child." Charlotte took a step forward, but Livia didn't budge. "Actually, according to the custody agreement, you do." The words came from behind them. Lucas stood in the hallway, his video call forgotten. "Charlotte, what are you doing here?" "Can't a mother check on her daughter?" Charlotte's smile was sharp. "Especially when I hear you've hired yet another stranger to raise her." Her gaze swept over Livia again, calculating. "How interesting that you're so quick to defend her. Tell me, Lucas, is history repeating itself?" "That's enough." Lucas's tone could have frozen the rain outside. "Good night, Charlotte." After she left, silence filled the foyer. Livia's mind raced with questions, but Lucas's expression warned against asking them. "I should check on Sophia," she said finally. Livia, his voice stopped her on the first stare. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." "It's my job to protect Sophia," she replied simply, "from anything that might upset her." "Is it just a job?" The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Before Livia could answer, a small voice called down from upstairs. "Livia?" "I heard voices." "Coming, sweetheart." Livia hurried up, leaving Lucas's question unanswered. But as she comforted Sophia back to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything had shifted. Charlotte's arrival had cracked open a door to complexities Livia wasn't sure she was ready to face. In the darkness of Sophia's room, watching the child's peaceful breathing, Livia confronted an uncomfortable truth. Her feelings for this little family had grown beyond professional boundaries. The real question was whether that would strengthen her ability to protect them or ultimately tear everything apart. Outside, the rain continued its steady rhythm, washing away the day's tensions but leaving behind questions that would demand answers sooner than any of them were ready to give. What Livia couldn't know was that Charlotte's unexpected visit was just the opening move in a carefully orchestrated game, one that would test not only Livia's dedication, but the very foundations of the family they'd begun to build. Livia sat in her tiny apartment on the Lower East Side, staring at the prestigious Columbia University scholarship letter that had arrived that morning. The full academic scholarship. She'd worked 3 jobs to qualify for her dream of becoming a child psychologist, finally within reach. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind from their last phone call before she passed away 2 years ago. "Education is the one thing they can never take from you, Mija." The autumn rain pelted against her window as she glanced at Lucas Thorne's business card on her worn desk. His offer of a full-time nanny position with flexible hours for classes seemed too good to be true. The salary he'd mentioned would cover her living expenses without the exhausting juggle of multiple jobs. But something about the intensity in his eyes when he'd watched her with Sophia made her pause. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rachel at the Coffee Bean. "You're really considering leaving us for a nanny position? Girl, have you Googled Lucas Thorne?" Livia had, of course. CEO of Thorn Enterprises, one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. Recently divorced from Charlotte Pierce, the brilliant corporate lawyer who'd helped build the company before selling her shares in a highly publicized split. Their custody battle had made headlines, though the details were surprisingly scarce. Sometimes the scariest choices are the right ones, her mother used to say. Livia traced her finger over the acceptance letter, remembering the little girl in the park. Sophia's trust had been immediate, complete. In 15 years of working with children, from babysitting through high school to managing the children's section at the library through college, Livia had never encountered a child so desperately in need of stability. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, stood in the hallway with a knowing smile. "Package came for you, dear." Background check papers, very official-looking. She handed Livia a thick envelope. "You're taking that nanny position for the rich man from the park." "I haven't decided yet," Livia admitted, though the arrival of the background check forms suggested Lucas Thorn had already made his choice. "My mother was a nanny for a wealthy family back in China," Mrs. Chen said softly. "She always said the hardest part wasn't the work, it was keeping her heart from becoming too involved. Rich families, they live in a different world. Be careful, dear." But as Livia reviewed the extensive background check forms that evening, she couldn't stop thinking about Sophia's storm-grey eyes and the way Lucas's carefully maintained facade had cracked when he found his daughter. These weren't just wealthy people to her, they were already becoming something more. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from the Columbia Scholarship Committee requesting an immediate response. The deadline was tomorrow. Across town, in his Upper East Side mansion, Lucas Thorn was probably reviewing her preliminary background check, deciding whether to trust his daughter's care to a scholarship student from the wrong side of the tracks. Livia closed her eyes, remembering her mother's other favorite saying, "Life doesn't always give you easy choices, Mija, but it always gives you the right ones if you listen to your heart." Opening her laptop, she began typing 2 emails. The first to Columbia, respectfully deferring her scholarship for a year. The second to Lucas Thorn, accepting his offer with one condition: complete honesty between them about anything that might affect Sophia's well-being. What she couldn't write, was how something deep inside her already knew this decision would change everything. That the simple act of choosing to step into the Thorns' world would set in motion events that would challenge every boundary between professional duty and personal connection. The rain intensified outside her window as she pressed send on both emails, her mother's words echoing once more, "The scariest choices are often the right ones." She could only hope this choice would prove her mother right. Lucas Thorn's fingers drummed against his mahogany desk as he stared at the morning's financial reports. Thorn Enterprises stock had dropped 15 points overnight following a leaked email suggesting corporate mismanagement. The timing was too perfect, just days after he'd hired Livia. His assistant Clara appeared in the doorway, her usually calm demeanor tense. "Charlotte Pierce is on line 1. She says it's about Sophia, but marketing also reports she scheduled an interview with the Wall Street Journal." Lucas pinched the bridge of his nose, aware of the familiar pattern emerging. Every time Charlotte made public statements about their daughter, the company's stock took a hit. But this time felt different, calculated in a way that made his instincts scream danger. "Mr. Thorn," Livia's voice came through the intercom, steady despite the chaos. "Sophia's school called. Reporters are gathering at the gates, asking about her new nanny's questionable background." His jaw tightened. "Get Sophia home immediately. Use the security protocol we discussed." "Already done. We're in the car now." He allowed himself a moment of gratitude for Livia's efficiency before answering Charlotte's call. Her voice dripped honey-coated venom through the speaker. "Really, Lucas? A coffee shop waitress watching our daughter? The board must be thrilled with your judgment these days." "What do you want, Charlotte?" "Such hostility." I'm merely expressing concern about our daughter's welfare. The press seems quite interested in your new arrangement. Lucas's computer pinged with a stock alert. Another 2-point drop. You leaked those emails. Leaked is such an ugly word. I simply shared my maternal concerns with a few key investors. It's fascinating how quickly the market responds to questions about leadership stability. Through his office window, Lucas watched Livia's car pull into the private garage, her arm protectively around Sophia as they hurried inside. Even from 12 stories up, he could see his daughter's distress at the reporters calling questions. "Using our daughter as a market manipulation tool," he said quietly. "That's low even for you." Charlotte's laugh was crystalline sharp. "Oh, darling, you haven't seen low yet. But you will, unless. Buy back my shares. Triple the market value. I'll retract my concerns, and this unfortunate situation with the unsuitable nanny never makes tomorrow's papers." Lucas's free hand curled into a fist. "You're blackmailing me using our daughter." "I prefer to think of it as leveraging my maternal rights for mutual benefit. You have until the market closes tomorrow. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll have to pursue my concerns about Sophia's welfare more publicly." The line went dead as Livia appeared in his doorway, Sophia clinging to her hand. His daughter's eyes were red-rimmed, but she wasn't crying. Instead, she had that same determined look he'd seen in the mirror countless times. "The mean lady on TV said Livia was bad," Sophia announced, "but she's lying. Livia makes the nightmares go away." Something in Lucas's chest tightened as he watched Livia kneel to Sophia's level, her voice gentle but firm. "Sometimes people say unkind things when they're hurting, butterfly. What matters is that we know the truth in our hearts." The stock ticker on his screen showed another drop, but for the first time since the divorce, Lucas felt something stronger than business instinct take hold. Charlotte had miscalculated. She thought threatening Livia would weaken him. Instead, watching his daughter's fierce defense of her new nanny, he felt his resolve harden. "Clara," he called to his assistant, "get me everything you can on unusual trading patterns around Charlotte's public statements, and call legal. It's time we stopped playing defense." The war for his company had just become a battle for his family's soul, and Lucas Thorne had no intention of losing either. The afternoon light filtered through the coffee beans windows as Lucas Thorne watched Livia interact with her customers. He'd chosen a small table near the window, ordered a black coffee, and waited, observing her natural grace with children and her patience with even the most demanding patrons. Finally, Livia approached his table, untying her apron. "I have 15 minutes, she said, sitting across from him. "What's this about, Mr. Thorne?" "Lucas," he corrected automatically, and I'm not entirely sure. He paused, organizing his thoughts. "Sophia's nanny resigned." Could the word carried steel? She was negligent. "Yes, she was." Lucas studied Livia's face. "Sophia hasn't stopped talking about you since that day in the park. She's usually very reserved with new people. Children can sense when someone genuinely cares about their well-being." There was no accusation in her tone, but Lucas felt the weight of her words. "I'm looking for a new nanny," he continued. "Someone who will actually pay attention to my daughter instead of their phone. Someone Sophia already trusts." Understanding dawned in Livia's eyes. "Mr. Lucas, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not a nanny. I'm a student working towards my degree." "I know. Clara, my assistant, did some research." He held up a hand when Livia's eyes narrowed. "Standard procedure when it comes to my daughter's safety. You're taking night classes, working 2 jobs. I'm offering you one job that would pay better than both combined, with flexible hours to accommodate your studies." "You don't know anything about me?" "I know you found a lost child and immediately headed for proper authorities instead of trying to handle it alone. I know you stood your ground when I questioned your actions, Most importantly, I know Sophia trusts you. Lucas leaned forward. Everything else I'm willing to learn. Livia was quiet for a long moment, absently tracing patterns on the table surface. What exactly would this job entail? Picking Sophia up from school, staying with her until I get home, occasionally accompanying us to events or traveling with us if needed. Full benefits, of course, and, as I said, flexible hours for your classes. And what happens when I graduate? When I start my career? Lucas hadn't thought that far ahead. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Right now I need someone I can trust with my daughter. A couple entered the cafe, and Livia glanced at the counter where her co-worker was already looking overwhelmed. I need to get back to work. Take some time to think about it. Lucas pulled out a business card and wrote his personal number on the back. Call me when you decide. Livia took the card, turning it over in her hands. I have one condition, she said finally. If, and that's a big if I take this job, there needs to be complete honesty between us. No more background checks without telling me, no hidden cameras or surprise investigations. I understand being protective of Sophia, but I won't work under a microscope. Lucas felt a smile tugging at his lips, the first real one in days. Miss Martinez, I believe you might be the first person to set conditions before accepting my offer. Someone has to, she stood, tucking the card into her pocket. I'll think about it and let you know. That's all I'm asking. As he watched her return to work, efficiently clearing tables while greeting new customers, Lucas realized he'd offered her more than just a job. He'd offered her entry into their complicated world with all its privileges and pitfalls. The question wasn't whether she was qualified. Her interaction with Sophia had already proven that. The question was whether she was prepared for the storm that would come with accepting her place in their lives. 3 weeks into her new role, Livia discovered the depth of Sophia's nightmares. The first time the child's screams pierced the night, both Livia and Lucas ran to her room. Livia from the guest bedroom, where she now stayed, Lucas from his study where he'd been reviewing contracts. Don't let her take me, Sophia sobbed, clinging to them both as they sat on either side of her small bed. Please don't let her take me away. Nobody's taking you anywhere, Princess, Lucas promised, his voice rough with emotion. You're safe. Livia stroked Sophia's damp curls, exchanging worried looks with Lucas over the child's head. They'd tried to shield her from the tension, but children had an uncanny way of absorbing unspoken fears. Remember what we talked about safe spaces? Livia asked softly, reaching for the butterfly nightlight they'd installed together. When we're scared, we can create our own cocoon of safety. As they went through their calming routine, naming 5 things they could see, 4 they could touch, 3 they could hear, Livia observed how naturally Lucas had adapted to their nightly ritual. The corporate titan who commanded boardrooms now sat cross-legged on a pink duvet, helping his daughter count stuffed animals until her breathing steadied. During the day, their routine took on a rhythm of its own. Mornings meant French toast and storytelling, Sophia insisting on helping mix the batter, while Livia snuck glances at Lucas over his morning coffee. She caught him watching them more often lately, something unreadable in his expression as Sophia chattered about her dreams of butterfly gardens and forever families. The last nanny never let me help cook, Sophia confided one morning, carefully measuring vanilla extract. She said keeping me quiet was part of her job. Lucas's hand tightened on his coffee cup. Why didn't you tell me? Because Sophia concentrated on not spilling. Grown-ups always leave when I tell, but Livia's different. She listens with her heart. The simple observation hung in the kitchen's morning light, weighted with trust and expectation. Later that day, as Livia helped Sophia with her homework, Lucas appeared in the doorway of the study. You've changed her, he said quietly, watching his daughter contentedly working through math problems. I've never seen her so secure. She's always been secure in your love, Livia corrected, marking another correct answer with a star sticker. She just needed permission to express her fears without feeling like a burden. Is that what you studied in your child psychology classes? No, Livia met his gaze. That's what I learned from growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs to give me a future. Sometimes children need to know it's okay not to be okay. Understanding flickered in Lucas's eyes. Before he could respond, Sophia proudly held up her completed homework. Look, Daddy, all the butterflies found their way home. Livia had redesigned Sophia's math worksheets with butterfly graphics, turning addition and subtraction into stories about butterfly migration. The improvement in Sophia's math scores had been immediate. I see that. Princess Lucas moved into the room, examining the colorful pages. You've made incredible progress. That's because Livia makes numbers into stories, Sophia explained, and she never gets mad when I need extra time to understand. Lucas's hand brushed Livia's shoulder as he leaned in to see the worksheets a touch so brief she might have imagined it, yet it sent warmth cascading through her chest. These moments of casual intimacy had been increasing, each one a small crack in the professional boundaries she'd tried so hard to maintain. Later that night, updating her daily log of Sophia's progress, Livia found herself writing family unit showing increased cohesion, expressing emotions more freely. Note professional boundaries becoming increasingly complex as emotional attachments deepen. She stared at the last line, her pen hovering over the page. The word family had slipped out unconsciously, yet it felt right. Somewhere between midnight comfort and morning French toast, between butterfly math and shared worry, they'd become something more than employer and employee. The question was whether that evolution would prove to be their strength or their undoing. The first real test of their evolving dynamic came during Sophia's school art exhibition. Lucas was trapped in an emergency board meeting, leaving Livia to attend alone. She found Sophia standing beside her butterfly garden painting, small shoulders drooping as other children's parents filled the classroom. "Where's Daddy?" Sophia whispered as Livia knelt beside her. "He's trying his very best to get here," Livia answered honestly. "But he asked me to record everything so he won't miss a moment. Would you tell me about your painting?" Sophia hesitated, then straightened. "It's our garden, see? That's you and Daddy helping me plant butterfly bushes, and those are the monarchs that visited last week." As Sophia explained each detail, her enthusiasm growing, other parents began gathering around. Mrs. Anderson, the art teacher, joined them, beaming. "Sophia's piece is quite remarkable. The way she's captured the relationship between the figures shows exceptional emotional awareness for her age." "That's my daughter you're discussing," Charlotte Pierce's voice cut through the appreciative murmurs. She stood in the doorway, impeccably dressed, a photographer hovering behind her. "I came as soon as I heard about the exhibition." Sophia pressed against Livia's side. "You weren't invited." "I don't need an invitation to see my daughter's artwork," Charlotte advanced, camera flashes following her, "though I am surprised your father couldn't be bothered to attend." "Mr. Thorne is in an emergency board meeting," Livia stated calmly, though her heart raced. "Which you would know, as your press statement this morning triggered it." Charlotte's perfect smile didn't waver. A concerned mother has every right to question company leadership. When it affects her child's welfare, she turned to the hovering photographer. "Make sure you get shots of the empty space where her father should be." "My daddy loves me," Sophia's voice trembled but held firm. "He sees my art every day. I painted this for our family wall." Family. Charlotte's laugh was brittle. "Darling, the help doesn't count as family." The room fell silent. Mrs. Anderson stepped forward, but Livia was already moving, placing herself between Charlotte and Sophia. "Mrs. Pierce, this is a school event. Your photographer needs to leave, and any concerns about custody arrangements should be addressed through proper legal channels." "How dare you?" Mama's small voice from the doorway made everyone turn. 10-year-old Emily Chen, whose mother Livia had helped at the coffee shop, stood clutching her artwork. "Is it true what they're saying about Miss Livia?" She can't be bad. She helped me learn to read when no one else had time. Other children began chiming in. She makes math fun. She always listens. She helped me when I was scared on the playground. Parents stepped forward, forming a protective circle around Livia and Sophia. Mrs. Chen, who had followed her daughter, spoke firmly. I think it's time you left, Mrs. Pierce. This is a celebration of children's creativity, not a press opportunity. Charlotte's composure cracked slightly. With a final sharp glance at Livia, she retreated, her photographer scrambling after her. In the quiet that followed, Sophia tugged at Livia's hand. Can we add this painting to Daddy's office, so he can see it every day? Of course, Butterfly, Livia hugged her close, overwhelmed by the community's support. And you know what? I think this painting tells the true story of our garden, how love helps beautiful things grow. That evening, when Lucas finally escaped his meeting, he found them in the kitchen, painting butterfly copies of Sophia's artwork. Without a word, he joined them at the table, rolling up his expensive shirt sleeves to help. The simple act of creating together somehow said everything about what they'd become, a family bound not by obligation or biology, but by choice. The breaking point came during a quiet Sunday afternoon. Lucas found Livia in his study, methodically documenting Sophia's progress over the past month. The board meeting tomorrow, he began, leaning against his desk. Charlotte's making a play for reinstatement as a director. She's claiming my personal life is affecting company stability. Livia looked up from her notes. You mean me? She's presenting evidence that your presence is detrimental to Sophia's well-being. His voice remained measured, but tension radiated from his shoulders. The board is concerned about public perception. What kind of evidence? Testimonials from previous employers about unreliability, suspicious gaps in your work history. He met her eyes. A sealed juvenile record. The room grew very still. You knew about that when you hired me. Yes, but the board doesn't know I knew. Charlotte's painting it as a deliberate oversight, suggesting emotional compromise in my judgment. Because of how I make you feel. Livia's voice was barely a whisper. Lucas straightened, moving closer. Because of how you make us feel. How you've changed this house from a showcase into a home. How you've helped Sophia bloom. How you've made me remember there's more to life than quarterly reports. That's exactly what Charlotte wants to use against you. Livia stood, creating distance between them. Maybe she's right. Maybe I've crossed too many lines. Don't let her make you doubt what we've built here. What exactly have we built, Lucas? I'm your daughter's nanny. You're my employer. Anything else is. Is what he closed the distance she'd created. Inappropriate, unprofessional, or just terrifying because it's real? Before she could respond, Sophia appeared in the doorway, clutching her butterfly journal. Are you fighting? They stepped apart instantly. No, sweetheart, Livia assured her. We're just having a grown-up discussion. About Mummy trying to make you leave. Sophia's lower lip trembled. I heard Mrs. Chen talking to her daughter. She said Mummy's being mean because she's jealous of our family. Lucas knelt to his daughter's level. Princess, sometimes adults make things complicated when they're hurting. But we're not hurting anymore. Sophia opened her journal, showing them the daily butterfly count they'd started together. See? The garden's growing. You smile more, Daddy. And Livia makes the scared feelings go away. We're better together. Out of the mouths of babes, Livia thought, watching Lucas absorb his daughter's simple wisdom. The board can think what they want, he said, finally standing. I won't let Charlotte destroy what matters most. Not again. And what will that cost you? Livia asked softly. Less than losing you. With the rawness in his voice made her heart stutter. Both of you. Sophia moved between them, taking each of their hands. Can we go check on the chrysalis now? You promised we'd watch it together. The tension dissolved as they followed Sophia to the garden, where a monarch butterfly was beginning its transformation. Watching it, Livia realized they were all changing, breaking free of old patterns, old fears, emerging into something new and beautiful. Later that night, after Sophia was asleep, Lucas found Livia adding to her daily log. "About tomorrow's board meeting," she said without looking up. "I'm coming with you." Livia. They need to see the truth, not Charlotte's version of it. Let me show them my documentation of Sophia's progress. Let them see what this inappropriate arrangement has actually done for her development. It could get ugly. She finally met his gaze. Some things are worth fighting for. The words hung between them, weighted with meaning beyond the immediate challenge. Tomorrow would bring its battles, but tonight, in the quiet of the study, they were simply two people acknowledging a truth too powerful to ignore. Their hearts had crossed lines their minds were still struggling to define. The morning of the board meeting dawned with an explosion of headlines across every major financial news outlet. Thorne Enterprises CEO's inappropriate relationship with nanny raises concerns. Accompanying the headlines were grainy photos of intimate family moments, Lucas helping Livia out of the car, their hands lingering, Sophia nestled between them at her art exhibition, the three of them tending their butterfly garden, looking every inch a family. Lucas's phone rang incessantly as he paced his study, fielding calls from investors and board members. Livia sat at the kitchen counter, scrolling through the coverage on her tablet while Sophia ate breakfast, blissfully absorbed in her morning routine of counting butterfly visitors through the window. Breaking news sources reveal Thorne Enterprises CEO's live-in nanny has a sealed juvenile record. Questions arise about child safety and corporate leadership judgment. Livia's hands trembled as she read the article. Her past, carefully buried beneath years of hard work and determination, now splashed across the internet for everyone to dissect. The reporter had even managed to track down her old neighbors from the group home, painting a picture of a troubled teen who had no business caring for a wealthy man's child. "They're lying about you," Sophia said suddenly, making both adults realize she'd abandoned her butterfly count to read over Livia's shoulder. "Why are they lying?" Before either could respond, Clara rushed in. "Sir Charlotte Pierce's live on CNBC right now." Lucas grabbed the remote, and Charlotte's perfectly composed face filled the screen. "As Sophia's mother, I have grave concerns about Mr. Thorne's judgment. This woman, this Livia Martinez, has a history of violence and instability. Her juvenile record was sealed, yes, but as a mother, I did my research. One has to wonder what else my ex-husband is hiding from shareholders." "Turn it off," Livia said quietly, but Sophia was faster, hitting the power button with unusual force. "That's enough." Lucas's voice carried the weight of barely controlled fury. "Clara, get me our PR team and legal. Now." "No," Livia stood, her decision crystallizing. "Let me handle this." Livia. "Your daughter needs stability right now, not another public battle between her parents." She knelt beside Sophia, who had gone very still. "Remember what we learned about butterflies in storms, sweetheart." "They find safe places to wait it out," Sophia whispered. "Are you going to leave us?" "No, Butterfly. I'm going to show everyone the truth." Livia took out her thick binder of daily logs, development charts, and documented improvements in Sophia's emotional and academic progress. Sometimes the best way to fight lies is with facts. "The board meeting starts in an hour," Lucas reminded her. "Then we better get moving." Livia's voice was steady, though her heart raced. "Sophia, how would you like to help me show some very important people your butterfly progress journal?" The child's face lit up. "The one where we track all my brave moments." "Exactly that one." Lucas watched them gather their evidence, Sophia's artwork, academic improvements, psychological assessments, all carefully documented and organized. "You know what they'll say about you bringing her to the meeting." Or that I'm manipulating her? Using her for emotional impact, Livia met his gaze. Let them. Sophia deserves to see us stand up to bullies with truth, not hide her away like we're ashamed. As they prepared to leave, their elderly neighbor Mrs. Chen appeared at the door, a group of other parents behind her. We saw the news, she announced. We're coming too. It's time someone spoke up about what we've actually seen, not what that woman is saying on TV. Livia felt tears prick her eyes as more neighbors arrived, parents from Sophia's school, former customers from the coffee shop, even her old professor from community college. Each carried stories of her impact on their lives, determined to counter Charlotte's narrative with truth. They were no longer just three people against a corporate empire. They had become the heart of a community standing up for love in its purest form, the kind that shows up every day, that chooses to stay, that builds families from the ground up with patience and grace. The Thorn Enterprises boardroom fell silent as Sophia stepped forward, her butterfly journal clutched tightly against her chest. 12 pairs of eyes followed her movement, shifting between the child and the financial projections displaying Charlotte's accusations on the wall behind her. My name is Sophia Thorn, she began, her small voice steady, and I want to tell you about my real family. Board member Richard Harrison, a longtime friend of Charlotte's, interjected. Mr. Thorn, this is highly irregular. Using your daughter to manipulate the board's emotions. With respect, Mr. Harrison, Livia stepped forward, her professional demeanor unwavering. Sophia asked to speak. After months of others speaking for her, perhaps it's time we listened. Lucas remained by the door where their supporters waited, letting his daughter's truth carry its own weight. Sophia opened her journal, revealing meticulous charts tracking her progress, nightmares decreasing, academic scores rising, social confidence growing. Before Livia came, I was scared all the time, Sophia continued. Mommy only visited when cameras were around. The other nannies always looked at their phones. But Livia taught me about butterflies. She turned a page. See? When I'm scared, we count brave moments like we count butterfly wings, and Daddy smiles more now. He reads stories instead of just saying goodnight. The boardroom's atmosphere shifted subtly. Even Harrison's stern expression softened as Sophia shared her carefully documented transformation. Livia's daily logs, cross-referenced with school reports and psychological assessments, painted an undeniable picture of a child flourishing under consistent care and genuine love. Charlotte burst through the doors, her designer heels clicking against marble floors. This is absurd. I demand. No, Mother Sophia's voice cut through the room with surprising authority for a 4-year-old. You don't get to demand anymore. Not when you're the one who makes the butterflies hide. The silence that followed was deafening. Charlotte recovered first, her laugh brittle. Lucas, darling, surely you see what she's done? Turning our daughter against me with her butterfly metaphors and emotional manipulation. The only manipulation here, Lucas finally spoke, is using our daughter's welfare as leverage for your financial gain, he gestured to Clara, who distributed documents to the board. These are trading records showing suspicious patterns around each of Charlotte's public statements about Sophia's care. The SEC has been notified. Charlotte's perfect mask cracked. You wouldn't dare. Actually, board chairwoman Elizabeth Foster interrupted, we've already received preliminary findings from the SEC. Ms. Martinez, your documentation of Sophia's progress is impressive, but more importantly, it's verifiable, Mrs. Pierce. Your accusations appear to correlate directly with attempts to manipulate stock prices. Sophia tugged at Livia's hand. Can we go check on our garden now? The new chrysalis might be ready. The simple request cut through the corporate tension, reminding everyone what truly mattered. Livia looked to Lucas, who nodded. Mr. Thorn, Chairwoman Foster continued, the board needs to deliberate, but I believe we've seen enough to understand the true nature of this situation. As they left the boardroom, their community supporters still waiting loyally outside, Livia realized they'd reached a point of no return. The professional boundaries she'd tried so hard to maintain had crumbled in the face of a greater truth. Sometimes the most appropriate response to life's challenges was simply love, expressed through consistent care and unwavering presence. Charlotte's voice followed them down the hallway. This isn't over. When the press hears about this circus. But Sophia was already skipping ahead, her butterfly journal hugged close, secure in the knowledge that her chosen family would protect her. Sometimes, Livia thought, the hardest decisions became simple when viewed through the eyes of a child who had finally found her safe harbor. In the days following the board meeting, the consequences of their stand rippled through their lives like waves after a storm. The board had unanimously rejected Charlotte's reinstatement bid and initiated an independent investigation into her trading activities. However, the media circus intensified, forcing them to adapt to a new normal. Lucas found Livia in the butterfly garden at dawn, documenting the latest chrysalis formation while Sophia slept upstairs. The board's public statement goes out this morning, he said, offering her a cup of coffee. They're formally acknowledging the SEC investigation into Charlotte's trading patterns. How's the market responding? Livia asked, accepting the coffee but not meeting his eyes. The stock's stabilizing. Investors appreciate transparency, he paused, watching her methodical note-taking. But that's not what matters most right now. Your company matters, Lucas, your reputation. It can be rebuilt. What can't be replaced is what we've created here. He gestured to the garden, where dozens of butterflies had made their home, drawn to the safe haven they'd cultivated. This family we've become. Before Livia could respond, Clara arrived with the morning briefing. Sir, the major networks are requesting interviews. They're particularly interested in MS Martinez's background work with troubled youth. It's being framed as a redemption narrative. Absolutely not, Lucas and Livia said simultaneously. We're not turning our lives into a media spectacle, Lucas continued. Sophia's been through enough. Clara nodded, then hesitated. There's something else. Columbia University called. They've heard about MS Martinez's work with Sophia, particularly her documentation methods. They're offering to convert her deferred scholarship into a full research fellowship, studying emotional development in children of high-pressure families. The opportunity Livia had dreamed of, transformed by the very circumstances that should have destroyed it. She felt Lucas stiffen beside her, though his face remained carefully neutral. That's wonderful news, he managed. It would mean leaving, Livia said softly. You should take it. Lucas's voice was rough. You've put your dreams on hold long enough. But what about? Livia Sophia stood in the garden doorway, sleep rumpled and clutching her butterfly journal. The chrysalis is moving. Is it time? They gathered around the delicate cocoon, watching as the first signs of emergence appeared. Sophia pressed between them, her presence a reminder of everything at stake. Sometimes, Livia began, choosing her words carefully, butterflies have to make hard choices about when to leave their cocoon. But leaving doesn't mean they stop loving the place that helped them grow. Sophia's eyes widened with understanding. You got into your special school, didn't you? The one in your acceptance letter. How did you know about that? I saw you reading it sometimes when you thought no one was looking. You looked sad but brave, like my butterflies when they're ready to fly. Lucas's hand found Livia's shoulder. You've given us so much, he said quietly. Perhaps it's time we gave something back, like the courage to follow your dreams. But I have to leave to follow them, Livia whispered. No, Sophia said with 4-year-old wisdom. You have to grow bigger to help more people. Like how our garden grew bigger to help more butterflies. The chrysalis before them began to split, revealing iridescent wings still wet with possibility. They watched in silence as the butterfly emerged, its transformation a testament to the beauty of change. The fellowship doesn't start until fall, Clara offered gently. That's 3 months away. 3 months to figure out how to balance dreams with love, professional growth with personal bonds. 3 months to prove that some connections transcend traditional boundaries and roles. The morning sun painted their faces in gold as they witnessed the butterfly's first tentative wing beats. Together they had weathered Charlotte's storm. Now they faced a different kind of challenge, learning how to grow without growing apart. The first sign that Charlotte hadn't finished her campaign came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Livia discovered all the butterfly bushes in their garden had been uprooted overnight, leaving only devastation where their sanctuary had flourished. Security cameras had been mysteriously disabled during the incident. "It's just plants," Lucas said, watching Sophia's face crumple as she surveyed the damage. "We can replant them, Princess." "But what about our butterflies?" Sophia whispered. "Where will they go?" Before Livia could respond, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Her blood ran cold as she read the headline, "Troubled Youth to Trusted Nanny, the Violent Past of Lucas Thorne's Live-In Love Interest." The article detailed her sealed juvenile record with devastating accuracy, the group home fights, the desperate attempt to protect her younger foster siblings from an abusive caretaker, the night that had changed everything. Accompanying the expose were photographs of her teenage self, wild-eyed and defensive, being led away in handcuffs. "I was 16, Livia said quietly, feeling Lucas read over her shoulder. "The home administrator was hurting the younger children. I stopped him. The charges were dropped, the record sealed. I thought that part of my life was behind me." "It should have stayed sealed." Lucas's voice carried carefully controlled fury. "This is a federal offense." Clara appeared in the garden doorway, her usual composure shaken. "Sir, the morning shows are running with the story. Private schools in the area are questioning Sophia's enrollment for fall." And she hesitated. "The police are here. Someone filed a child endangerment complaint." Sophia clutched Livia's hand. "They can't take you away. You're our butterfly keeper." 2 officers approached through the devastated garden, their expressions professionally neutral. "MS Martinez, we need to ask you some questions about your background check disclosures." "This is harassment." Lucas stepped forward. "My legal team." "It's okay," Livia interrupted, squeezing Sophia's hand before letting go. "I'll answer their questions. Truth is our best defense, remember." The questioning lasted 3 hours. Livia detailed every moment of that night 10 years ago, every step she'd taken since to build a different life. Her college transcripts, character references, and spotless adult record painted a picture of transformation and redemption. But the damage was spreading. By afternoon, parents from Sophia's school had organized a petition demanding Livia's removal. The board of directors called an emergency meeting to discuss reputation management. Even their strongest supporters seemed to be wavering under the barrage of negative press. "We should have seen this coming," Lucas said that evening, after Sophia had finally fallen asleep clutching her butterfly journal. "Charlotte's too strategic for simple revenge. This was calculated to hit us where we're most vulnerable." "Through me," Livia completed the thought. "My past makes me the perfect weapon against you. A CEO who knowingly hired someone with a violent history to care for his daughter. The shareholders will crucify you." "I don't care about the shareholders." "You have to care. This company isn't just about you anymore. What about your employees, their families? You've built something that matters, Lucas. I won't let my past destroy that." A crash from upstairs interrupted them. They found Sophia in the middle of her bedroom floor, surrounded by broken glass from her butterfly nightlight. She looked up at them with tears streaming down her face. "I heard you," she accused. "You're planning to leave us because of Mummy's mean stories. But they're lying. You only hurt bad people who hurt kids. That makes you a hero, not a villain." Livia knelt among the glass shards, careful not to let her own tears fall. Sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices to protect the people they love. But who will protect us if you go? Sophia's question hung in the air, heavy with all the weight a child's fear could carry. Lucas joined them on the floor, gathering both of them close, heedless of the broken glass. "No one's going anywhere," he said firmly. "We've weathered worse storms than this." But later that night, after both Lucas and Sophia had fallen asleep, Livia sat at her desk composing 2 letters. The first, her resignation, would protect Lucas's company from further scandal. The second, to Sophia, tried to explain why sometimes love meant walking away before you could be used to hurt the people who mattered most. She was halfway through the second letter when her phone lit up with an encrypted message from Clara. Evidence found linking garden vandalism to offshore account. Same account traced to Charlotte's trading patterns. "Sec very interested. Hold the line." Livia stared at the incomplete letters, remembering Sophia's words, "You only hurt bad people who hurt kids." Perhaps it was time to stop running from her past and start using it to protect her future and her family's. The confrontation reached its climax during Thorne Enterprises' annual shareholder meeting. Charlotte arrived with an army of lawyers and a court order demanding immediate access to Sophia, claiming grave concerns about the child's safety following the revelations about Livia's past. Lucas stood at the podium, addressing a packed auditorium of shareholders and press. "Before we discuss quarterly earnings, I need to address the recent allegations regarding my family's personal matters." "This goes beyond personal matters," Charlotte interrupted, striding down the center aisle. "Our daughter is living with someone who has a documented history of violence. As a mother and a significant shareholder, I demand immediate action." The room erupted in murmurs. Security moved forward, but Charlotte held up her court order. "I have legal authority to remove Sophia from this dangerous situation." Mrs. Pierce Board Chairwoman Foster interjected, "This is hardly the appropriate venue." On the contrary, Charlotte's smile was razor-sharp. "Our shareholders deserve to know that their CEO's judgment is compromised by his inappropriate relationship with a woman who assaulted her previous caregiver. A caregiver who was later convicted of abusing multiple children." Livia's voice carried clearly as she entered from the side door. She wore a professional suit, her usual warmth replaced by steely determination. "Shall we discuss the full context of my sealed record, Mrs. Pierce? Including how you illegally obtained it?" Charlotte's composure flickered. "The means are irrelevant when a child's safety is at stake." "Is that why you hired someone to vandalize our butterfly garden?" Livia projected photographs onto the presentation screen, security footage showing a man in dark clothing destroying the garden, followed by bank transfers from a Cayman Islands account. The same account linked to suspicious trading patterns around your public accusations. "This is absurd," Charlotte sputtered. "You have no proof." "The CSE has proof." Clara stepped forward, distributing documents to the board members. "They've been building a case for months. The garden vandalism provided the final connection they needed." Charlotte's lawyers huddled in urgent consultation. The shareholders shifted restlessly, watching the drama unfold. But Livia wasn't finished. "You want to discuss child safety?" She pulled up Sophia's development charts. "Here's documented evidence of emotional trauma each time you've used your daughter as leverage for financial gain. Here's proof of recovery under consistent, loving care. And here." She projected a final image of their butterfly garden in full bloom. "Is what you tried to destroy not just plants, but a symbol of healing and growth." "Where is Sophia now?" Charlotte demanded. "I have a court order." "Which was just stayed by the federal court," Lucas's lawyer announced, entering with a new document. "In light of the SEC investigation and evidence of document tampering in the original filing." The room fell silent as Charlotte's carefully constructed plan crumbled. But she had one final card to play. "Lucas," she turned to her ex-husband, voice dripping concern. "Can't you see what she's doing? She's manipulating you, using her tragic past and her connection with Sophia to take control. Just like she claims that administrator abused children, now she's painting me as an abusive mother. It's a pattern. For a moment, doubt flickered across the shareholders' faces. This was the narrative they'd expected, the troubled young woman manipulating her way into a wealthy family. But then a small voice piped up from the back of the room. "That's not true, Mummy." Sophia stood in the doorway, flanked by Mrs. Chen and other community supporters. Despite Lucas and Livia's attempts to shield her from this moment, she'd insisted on coming. In her hands, she clutched her butterfly journal. "Livia teaches me that lying is wrong," Sophia continued, her voice gaining strength as she walked forward. "She shows me that love means choosing someone every day, not just when cameras are watching, and she never ever uses people to get what she wants. Not like you do." Charlotte recoiled as if struck. The shareholders watched in stunned silence as this child dismantled the sophisticated legal and PR attack with simple truth. Furthermore, Chairwoman Foster cleared her throat. "The board has completed its own investigation. MS Martinez's background check was properly disclosed to Mr. Thorne at hiring. Her subsequent work with Sophia has been exemplary, documented, and verified by multiple child development experts. The only person endangering Sophia's welfare appears to be the one using her for market manipulation." Security finally stepped forward, this time to escort Charlotte and her lawyers from the room. As they left, she turned back one last time. "This isn't over. When the press hears—" "The press has already heard plenty," Clara interrupted, indicating the reporters scribbling frantically. "Would you like to comment on the SEC investigation before you go?" In the aftermath of Charlotte's exit, Lucas addressed the shareholders again. "I know recent events have raised concerns about leadership stability. Let me be clear, my priority has always been protecting what matters most: my daughter, my company, and the people who make it strong. Sometimes that protection comes from unexpected places. And sometimes the strongest leaders are those who recognize that love and integrity are not corporate liabilities." The shareholders' meeting continued, but the real battle had been won in moments of raw truth: a child's wisdom, a community's support, and the power of choosing love over fear. Later that evening, in the quiet of their restored butterfly garden, the true weight of the day settled around them. While Sophia slept upstairs, exhausted from her brave stand, Lucas and Livia faced their own internal battles. "Columbia called again," Livia said softly, watching a monarch butterfly settle on a newly planted bush. "The fellowship committee needs my decision by tomorrow. They've been more than patient, given everything that's happened." Lucas traced the rim of his coffee cup, choosing his words carefully. "Today proved something important. You're not just Sophia's nanny anymore. You never really were. The way you handled Charlotte, the shareholders, the press, you protected our family with the same fierce grace you once used to protect those foster children." "That's what terrifies me," Livia admitted, finally voicing the fear that had haunted her since the garden's destruction. "I thought I'd left that part of myself behind, the girl who would fight anyone who threatened those she loved. But when I saw what Charlotte had done to our garden, what she was doing to Sophia, she trailed off, remembering the rage that had surfaced. You channeled it into something constructive. You gathered evidence, built a case, protected Sophia, while exposing Charlotte's manipulation. That's not violence, Livia. That's justice." "Is it?" She turned to face him. "Or am I just repeating patterns, getting too involved, letting emotional attachment cloud my judgment? Maybe Charlotte's right, maybe I am manipulating my way into your lives." "Stop." Lucas moved closer, his voice firm. "You've documented every step of Sophia's progress, maintained professional boundaries even as our feelings grew deeper, and put your own dreams on hold to protect her stability. Those aren't the actions of a manipulator." "But they're not the actions of a proper nanny either." Livia stood, pacing the garden path. "I crossed lines, Lucas. I fell in love with my employer's child. I fell in love with my employer. I let myself believe we could be a real family." "We are a real family." "Are we? Or are we just three wounded people clinging to each other because it feels safe? The question that had tormented her finally emerged. What if I take the fellowship, and you both realize you were just ... attached to the stability I provided? What if I stay, and my past eventually hurts your reputation beyond repair? Lucas was quiet for a long moment, watching the butterflies settle in for the night. Finally, he said, "When I hired you, I thought I was just finding someone to care for Sophia. Instead, you taught us both how to live again. How to trust, how to grow, how to fight for what matters. That's not attachment, Livia. That's love." "Love isn't always enough." "No," he agreed, "but it's a foundation. Everything else, your fellowship, my company, our future, we can build on that foundation together." From upstairs came the sound of Sophia's door opening, followed by small footsteps on the stairs. She appeared in the garden doorway, clutching her butterfly journal. "I had a dream," she announced, climbing into Livia's lap as naturally as breathing. "All our butterflies were scared because of the mean people, but then they remembered what you taught us. About how being brave doesn't mean not being scared, it means doing the right thing anyway." Livia felt tears prick her eyes as Lucas joined them on the garden bench. "When did you get so wise, butterfly?" "From watching you." Sophia opened her journal to a new page. She'd drawn 3 figures surrounded by butterflies, with the words "My real family" carefully printed above. "See, even when the garden was broken, we stayed together. That's what real families do." The simplicity of a child's wisdom cut through their adult complications. Livia looked at her Columbia acceptance letter, then at the family beside her, Lucas, who challenged her to be both strong and vulnerable, Sophia, who loved with a purity that healed old wounds. What if, she said slowly, there was a way to do both? The fellowship includes research components. What if I proposed studying right here, documenting how children like Sophia recover from parental manipulation through stable support systems? "You'd stay." Sophia's eyes lit up. "I'd stay. But I'd also be working toward my dreams, contributing to child psychology research, helping other families understand what we've learned together." Lucas took her hand, his grip warm and sure. "You'd be building something new without tearing down what we've grown here. Like how butterflies make new gardens without forgetting their first home," Sophia added wisely. Sitting there in their healing garden, surrounded by the butterflies returning to their sanctuary, Livia felt the internal struggle of the past months begin to settle. She would always carry the fierce protector inside her, not as a burden of past violence, but as a strength to defend what mattered most. The challenge wasn't choosing between love and ambition, but finding ways to let them nurture each other. As if understanding the moment's significance, a monarch butterfly landed on Sophia's journal, its wings catching the last light of day. Together, they watched it choose their garden as its home. The morning that changed everything began with an urgent call from Lucas's head of security. Charlotte had disappeared from federal surveillance, missing her scheduled court appearance for the CC investigation. Within hours, the carefully constructed piece of their world began to unravel. The offshore accounts had been emptied, Clara reported, her usual composure cracking. Every shell company linked to Charlotte's trading activities has been liquidated. The SEC estimates losses in the millions. Lucas stood at his office window, watching federal agents search the grounds of their home. The money doesn't matter. What matters is finding her before. His phone buzzed with a text message, a photo of Sophia's empty classroom, taken moments ago, with the caption, "Sometimes mothers have to save their children from themselves." The next hours passed in a blur of police activity, amber alerts and mounting dread. Security footage showed a woman in a cleaning uniform leading Sophia out a back door during lunch break. The child had gone willingly, likely recognizing one of Charlotte's longtime housekeepers. "She's been planning this," Livia realized, reviewing months of documentation with trembling hands. The garden vandalism, the press attacks, the SEC investigation, they were all distractions from her real purpose. Lucas paced the living room, coordinating with law enforcement while trying to maintain enough composure to handle the company's crisis response. Thorne Enterprises stock was in freefall as news of Charlotte's financial fraud coincided with Sophia's disappearance. "The board is calling for an emergency session," Clara reported. "Major shareholders are threatening to pull out if immediate leadership changes aren't made. They're saying the personal drama has become too costly." "I don't care about the company right now," Lucas snapped, but Livia caught the pain beneath his anger. He'd spent his life building Thorne Enterprises, creating jobs for thousands of families. Now Charlotte was systematically destroying everything he'd worked for. A detective entered with new information. Charlotte had been spotted boarding a private plane at a small airfield outside the city. The plane's flight plan indicated the Cayman Islands, but they had no way to verify if that was the true destination. "She's running with our daughter," Lucas said quietly, the weight of loss heavy in his voice. "Everything else, the company, the money, my reputation, I could lose it all. But Sophia." Livia studied the classroom photo again, something nagging at her trained observer's eye. Then she saw it in the background, partially visible on a student's desk, was yesterday's art project, butterflies made from pressed flowers from their garden. "She's not running," Livia said suddenly. "This photo, she wanted us to see it. She's not taking Sophia away, she's making a point. About mothers and gardens and saving children." "The lake house," Lucas breathed. "Our butterfly sanctuary. She's taking her there." But as they mobilized to leave, more devastating news arrived. Charlotte had triggered a series of pre-planned financial maneuvers. Thorne Enterprises' major contracts were being cancelled, partnerships dissolved, and intellectual property rights challenged through an intricate web of legal proceedings. "The company won't survive this," Clara said gently. "Even if you find Sophia, everything you built." Lucas looked around their home, at the butterfly garden visible through the windows, at Sophia's artwork on the walls, at the life they'd created together. "Some losses," he said finally, "are worth bearing if they lead us to what matters most." Livia touched his arm, her voice steady despite her fear. "We'll find her. We'll bring her home. And whatever we lose in the process, we'll rebuild. Together." As they prepared to leave for the lake house, a final message arrived from Charlotte: every garden must be pruned before it can grow stronger. Let's see what survives when everything is stripped away. The threat was clear. She wasn't just taking their daughter, she was systematically destroying everything they'd built, forcing them to choose between saving Sophia and salvaging what remained of Lucas's life's work. The lake house emerged from the twilight mist, its windows dark except for a single light in Sophia's former bedroom. As they approached, Lucas and Livia could see the butterfly garden they'd created had been immaculately maintained in their absence, Charlotte's final mockery of their family sanctuary. "Remember," Detective Morrison advised through their earpieces, "we have the property surrounded, but any sudden moves could escalate the situation. Ms. Martinez, given your background in child psychology, you'll take the lead in communication." Lucas gripped Livia's hand. "We go in together." "No," Livia said firmly, removing her earpiece. "Charlotte needs to feel in control. One person, no surveillance. She'll see this as mother against mother, the real parent versus the substitute. Let me use that." "Livia." "Trust me," she touched his face gently. "Some battles can only be won by laying down arms." The front door was unlocked. Livia entered to find Charlotte sitting in the living room, elegant even after hours of flight, while Sophia slept on the couch nearby. "I wondered which one of you would come first," Charlotte said softly, gesturing to the chair across from her. "The father who replaced me with a younger model, or the nanny who thought she could become me?" "I never wanted to replace you," Livia responded, taking the offered seat. "You're Sophia's mother. Nothing changes that. Yet here you are, playing house with my family, tending my daughter's garden." The garden was Sophia's idea. She needed a safe place to heal. Charlotte's perfect mask cracked slightly. Heal from what? From having a mother who wanted more than PTA meetings and bedtime stories? Who refused to be erased by motherhood? No, Livia kept her voice gentle. From being used as a weapon in adult battles. From learning that love could be conditional. Outside, they could hear the whisper of wind through the butterfly bushes. Charlotte stood, moving to the window. You know what's amusing? I had everything planned perfectly. The financial transfers, the legal challenges, the systematic dismantling of Lucas's empire. But do you know what Sophia said when she saw me today? Livia waited. She said, "Mummy, you're hurting our butterflies again." Charlotte's laugh was brittle. Not afraid, not angry, just disappointed. Like I was some stranger vandalizing her garden. She loves you, Livia said softly. But love shouldn't hurt. What would you know about it? Playing mother with someone else's child? I know that sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is put her child's needs before her own pain. Livia stood slowly. The company, the money, even my relationship with Lucas, take it all. Destroy everything if it helps heal whatever's broken inside you. But please, don't teach Sophia that love is a weapon. Charlotte turned, really looking at Livia for the first time. You'd give it all up? Everything you've built with them? For her? Without hesitation. A long moment passed, marked only by Sophia's peaceful breathing and the distant sound of sirens. Finally, Charlotte moved to her daughter, brushing a curl from her forehead. I never meant. She stopped, composing herself. The company transfers can be reversed. Most of them anyway. The offshore accounts. That's more complicated. The SEC will take that into consideration, Livia said quietly. Especially if you cooperate voluntarily. Charlotte straightened, her armor settling back into place. I suppose this makes you the better mother. No, Livia moved to the door. This makes you Sophia's mother, choosing her happiness over your hurt. That's what real love looks like. As law enforcement moved in and Lucas rushed to gather Sophia in his arms, Livia watched Charlotte surrender quietly, her perfect facade finally crumbling under the weight of recognition, not of what she'd lost, but of what she might still salvage through sacrifice. The aftermath of Charlotte's surrender unfolded with unexpected grace at the lake house. While federal agents processed paperwork in the living room, Sophia woke to find both her mothers sitting quietly in the butterfly garden, the morning mist softening their usual sharp edges. I believe you have something for your mother, Livia said gently, handing Sophia her cherished butterfly journal. Sophia approached Charlotte cautiously, the leather-bound book clutched to her chest. I kept track of everything, she explained, her small voice steady, even the days when you couldn't come. I didn't want you to miss how the garden grew. Charlotte's hands trembled as she accepted the journal. Page after page documented not just butterfly sightings, but moments she had missed, first successful spelling tests, lost teeth, playground victories. Each entry included a pressed flower or butterfly drawing, creating a timeline of her daughter's growth in her absence. You did this. For me, Charlotte's perfect composure wavered. Livia said sometimes people need to see how beautiful things grow while they're away, Sophia explained, so when they come back they know they were never forgotten. Lucas appeared in the garden doorway but remained silent, witnessing this delicate moment of reconciliation. Charlotte turned to the last page, where Sophia had drawn their entire complicated family, Lucas, Livia, Charlotte, and herself, all standing in the butterfly garden. I don't deserve this kindness, Charlotte whispered. Everyone deserves a chance to grow, Livia responded, echoing what she'd learned in her own journey from troubled teen to cherished caregiver. Even butterflies sometimes need multiple attempts to emerge from their chrysalis. Detective Morrison approached with signed documents. Mrs. Pierce, it's time. But given your cooperation and MS Martinez's statement, we've arranged for monitored visits while the legal process unfolds. "The garden will be here," Sophia said firmly, taking both women's hands. "You can help us plant new flowers, Mummy, even if it's just sometimes." As Charlotte was led away, she paused beside Livia. "I thought destroying your garden would break whatever spell you'd cast over my family. I never understood it wasn't a spell at all, was it? It was just love. Patient, consistent, unconditional love." "The garden's big enough for everyone," Livia replied softly. "It always was." Later that evening, as federal agents finally departed and calm settled over the lake house, they gathered on the porch watching fireflies dance among the butterfly bushes. Sophia fell asleep between Lucas and Livia, her journal still clutched tight. "You could have pressed charges," Lucas said quietly. "Added kidnapping to the SEC violations. No one would have blamed you." "Sometimes healing matters more than justice," Livia responded, stroking Sophia's hair. "She needs to know that forgiveness is possible, that love can survive even our worst mistakes. Like how you survived your past, transformed it into something beautiful. Like how we all did." Livia gazed at their flourishing garden, where even now butterflies were settling in for the night. "Charlotte's not a villain in this story. She's just another wounded soul learning to trust love again." In her sleep, Sophia smiled, perhaps dreaming of butterflies and second chances. The lake house stood peaceful around them, no longer a site of confrontation but a sanctuary of healing. They had lost much in the past days: money, corporate power, the illusion of perfect security, but they had gained something far more precious: the knowledge that true family could withstand any storm, and that sometimes the deepest love grows in the most unexpected gardens. The revelations emerged during Charlotte's SE deposition 3 weeks after the lake house incident. Lucas and Livia sat in the observation room, watching through one-way glass as Charlotte, impeccably composed despite her house arrest, faced the federal investigators. "Please state for the record your relationship with Marcus Bennett," the lead investigator requested. Charlotte's perfectly manicured hands tightened almost imperceptibly on her water glass. "He was Thorn Enterprises' chief financial officer during my marriage to Lucas. And after your divorce." A moment's hesitation. "We maintained a professional relationship." The investigator placed a document on the table. "This is a series of emails between you and Mr. Bennett, dating back 5 years. According to these communications, you orchestrated a long-term plan to systematically undermine Thorn Enterprises' value, allowing you to acquire controlling interest at a depreciated price." In the observation room, Lucas inhaled sharply. Livia reached for his hand, remembering all the late nights he'd spent trying to understand the company's inexplicable setbacks. "The plan," the investigator continued, "included strategic leaks of confidential information, manipulated performance reports, and most recently, the campaign to discredit Mr. Thorne's personal judgment regarding his daughter's care." Charlotte's lawyer leaned forward to whisper something, but she waved him off. "It wasn't about the money," she said quietly. "Not entirely." "Please elaborate for the record." "When Lucas and I built the company, we were equals, partners. Then Sophia came, and suddenly I was just the mother, the wife. Every board meeting, every strategic decision, they looked to him first. My opinions became emotional, my ambitions became selfish." She straightened in her chair. Marcus understood. He saw how they were diminishing me. The plan was simple: prove that Lucas's emotional attachments to our daughter, to the company, eventually to Livia, made him an unstable leader. I would step in, restore order, reclaim my place. By using your child as a corporate weapon. For the first time, Charlotte's composure cracked. "I never meant to hurt her. I thought I was saving her from becoming like me, trapped in a role, defined by others' expectations." The investigator produced another document. "This email suggests otherwise. You wrote to Mr. Bennett, the nanny situation is perfect. Once we expose her past, Lucas will have to choose between his daughter's safety and his heart. Either way, he loses credibility." In the observation room, Livia felt Lucas stiffen beside her, but Charlotte wasn't finished. What I didn't expect, she continued, her voice barely audible, was that Livia would choose Sophia over everything else. That she would offer to walk away, sacrifice her own happiness, just to keep my daughter safe. It made me realize I had become exactly what I feared, someone who saw love as a weakness to exploit. The investigator placed one final document on the table. Mr. Bennett has agreed to testify about his role in exchange for leniency. This details the full extent of the financial fraud, including offshore accounts we haven't yet uncovered. Are you prepared to make a similar deal? Charlotte looked directly at the observation window, somehow knowing exactly where Lucas and Livia would be sitting. Yes, she said clearly. I'll provide full cooperation, with one condition: any restitution comes from my assets alone. The company, what's left of it, remains under Lucas's control. And... She paused. Any visitation rights with Sophia are at Livia's discretion. She's proven to be a better judge of what my daughter needs than I ever was. As the deposition continued, Lucas and Livia left the observation room, processing the magnitude of these revelations. In the hallway they found Sophia waiting with Mrs. Chen, carefully adding another pressed flower to her journal. "Is Mummy telling the truth now?" she asked, showing them her latest entry, a delicate purple bloom titled Forgiveness Flower. "Yes, butterfly," Livia answered, marveling at how children could often distill complex adult dramas into simple truths. Sometimes people have to lose everything to find what matters most. In the quiet of their restored butterfly garden 2 days after Charlotte's deposition, Lucas found Livia methodically reorganizing her documentation files. Her research notes, initially focused solely on Sophia's development, had evolved into a comprehensive study of family healing through environmental therapy. "Columbia called again," he said, settling beside her on the garden bench. "They're impressed with your preliminary findings. They want to expand the fellowship into a full doctoral research program." Livia traced the edge of a file labeled Butterfly Effect Emotional Growth through natural connections. She had documented every step of their journey, from Sophia's first butterfly sighting in Central Park to Charlotte's eventual recognition of the garden's healing power. "I've been thinking," she said carefully, about what Charlotte said during her deposition, about being diminished by others' expectations. "I spent so long trying to overcome my past. To prove I was more than that angry teenager who lashed out to protect others. But maybe those experiences weren't something to overcome, they were preparing me for this moment." Lucas watched a monarch butterfly land on their newest flowering bush. "How so?" "I understood Charlotte's rage because I felt it. That desperation to be seen as more than society's labels: troubled youth, single mother's daughter, the help. But where she chose to tear things down, I learned to build, to transform pain into protection, anger into advocacy." She opened her research files, showing him the patterns she'd identified. "Look at Sophia's progress. Her breakthrough didn't come from expensive therapy or traditional interventions. It came from having a safe space to grow, people who chose her every day, and the simple miracle of watching butterflies emerge from their chrysalis. You're not just documenting a child's recovery anymore, are you?" Lucas observed, studying the extensive notes. "No," Livia smiled. "I'm developing a whole new approach to family therapy, using natural environments and simple, consistent nurturing to heal complex emotional trauma. Charlotte's actions, as harmful as they were, showed me that many parents carry their own unhealed wounds. They need sanctuary as much as their children do." She stood, walking to the butterfly bush where they'd first taught Sophia about transformation. "I've spent months worried about crossing professional boundaries, about letting my heart lead instead of my training. But what if that wasn't a weakness? What if my ability to love Sophia, to understand both you and Charlotte, to see the potential for healing in a simple garden, what if that's exactly what makes me qualified to help other families?" Lucas joined her, watching the butterflies dance between blooms. You're suggesting turning your personal experience into professional expertise. On that, I want to turn the lake house into a family healing center. Combine my research with practical application. Create a place where parents like Charlotte can learn to nurture without fear, where children like Sophia can grow without pressure, where families can rebuild trust through shared moments of wonder. She turned to face him, her eyes bright with purpose. I finally understand I'm not just a nanny who crossed lines or a researcher studying behavior. I'm someone who knows, deeply and personally, how love can transform wounds into wisdom. Every part of my journey, even the painful parts, has led me here. Lucas studied her face, seeing not just the woman he'd fallen in love with, but a visionary emerging from her own chrysalis. The board will need convincing to allocate company resources to such an unconventional project. Then we'll convince them. Show them how emotional healing translates to corporate stability, how stronger families create stronger communities. She gestured to their flourishing garden. After all, we have living proof that the smallest acts of nurture can yield the most beautiful transformations. The transformation of perspectives crystallized during the first board meeting after Charlotte's deposition. Lucas stood before the directors, not as a CEO defending his position, but as a leader proposing a new vision for corporate responsibility. For years, he began, we've measured success through market valuations and profit margins. Recent events have shown us the cost of that narrow focus. Today, I'm proposing a fundamental shift in how Thorn Enterprises defines its mission. He projected images of their butterfly garden onto the presentation screen, followed by data from Livia's research showing the correlation between emotional well-being and community stability. But, Miss Martinez's work with my daughter revealed something profound. Healing doesn't just happen in therapy offices or corporate boardrooms. It happens in moments of genuine connection, in spaces designed for growth and transformation. Board member Richard Harrison, once Charlotte's strongest ally, leaned forward. You're suggesting we diversify into family therapy services? That's quite a departure from our technology focus. I'm suggesting we recognize that our greatest assets aren't our patents or market share, but the trust of our community. Lucas displayed charts showing the impact of their recent crisis on employee morale and productivity. When Charlotte attacked our family, she didn't just threaten my personal life. She destabilized the entire corporate ecosystem. Chairwoman Foster studied the proposal before her. The lake house conversion into a family healing center would require significant investment. Shareholders might question such an unconventional allocation of resources. Then let them question. Lucas responded with newfound conviction. For too long, we've separated corporate success from human well-being. My own daughter's healing showed me they're inseparable. Livia stepped forward, her research presentation ready. But before she could begin, the boardroom door opened. Sophia entered, followed by Charlotte, who had been granted a supervised visit to address the board. If I may, Charlotte said, her usual polish tempered by genuine humility, I'd like to share what I've learned about the true cost of separating professional ambition from personal growth. The board members straightened, their attention caught by this unexpected alliance. Charlotte moved to stand beside Lucas and Livia, creating a visual representation of their evolved understanding. I tried to destroy this company because I thought power meant control, she continued. What I failed to see was how my daughter's garden created something more valuable than any corporate takeover, a place where broken things could heal, where success was measured in moments of transformation rather than market dominance. Sophia approached the board table, distributing pressed flowers from her journal to each director. These are from our garden, she explained with 4-year-old gravity. Even after mean people tried to destroy it, the butterflies came back. Livia says that's because love is stronger than fear. The simple wisdom of a child, combined with Charlotte's powerful testimony and Lucas's corporate vision, shifted the atmosphere in the boardroom. These hardened business professionals began to see beyond traditional metrics of success. Chairwoman Foster was the first to speak. Perhaps it's time for Thorn Enterprises to emerge from its own chrysalis. Ms. Martinez, please share your research on transformative family healing. As Livia presented her findings, Lucas observed the faces around the table. These weren't just board members evaluating a business proposal, they were humans recognizing their own need for spaces of transformation and growth. The vote to approve the lake house conversion was unanimous. More significantly, it represented a fundamental shift in corporate philosophy, one that recognized the interconnection between personal healing and professional success. Outside the boardroom windows, butterflies danced through the urban landscape, a reminder that beauty could flourish in the most unexpected places when given space to grow. The implementation of the Lake House Healing Center presented unexpected challenges that tested their newfound understanding. 1 month after the board's approval, Livia found herself mediating a tense discussion between Lucas and Charlotte regarding the center's operational protocols. The screening process for participating families is too restrictive, Charlotte argued, reviewing the admission criteria. We're excluding the very people who need this most, parents struggling with corporate demands and family obligations. Lucas maintained his position, though his tone remained measured. These families will be sharing intimate healing spaces. We need to ensure everyone's safety and privacy, especially given the high-profile nature of some participants. That sounds remarkably like the controlling behavior you accused me of, Charlotte observed sharply. Before tension could escalate, Livia intervened with the wisdom gained from months of documentation. Perhaps we're approaching this from the wrong perspective. Sophia, would you show your mother and father your latest garden journal entry? Their daughter, who had been quietly arranging pressed flowers at her small desk in the corner, brought forward her notebook. The page displayed a careful drawing of their butterfly garden, but with an important modification. The protective fence had been replaced by a series of overlapping circles, each containing different types of butterflies. See, Sophia explained, pointing to her illustration. The butterflies share the same flowers, but each family has their own safe space. Like how Mummy comes on Wednesdays now, and we have our special garden time without being scared of cameras or mean people. The simplicity of her solution cut through the adult's complexity. Livia expanded on the concept, pulling out her research notes. What if we created tiered healing spaces? Some areas would be completely private for families requiring maximum security, while others could be communal gardens for shared healing experiences. The butterflies don't recognize human boundaries, they create natural transitions between spaces. Lucas studied the proposal thoughtfully. We could incorporate different levels of screening based on the chosen program. Maximum privacy for crisis intervention, gradually opening to more communal healing as families progress. Like emotional chrysalises, Charlotte added softly, surprising them with her insight. Each family emerges at their own pace, in their own way. The tension dissolved as they began collaborating on a revised implementation plan. Charlotte's experience with corporate privacy concerns complemented Lucas's understanding of family security needs, while Livia's therapeutic expertise provided the framework for meaningful healing. Later that evening, as they watched Sophia add new flowers to the garden's communal section, Lucas addressed the underlying concern that had fueled his initial resistance. I was afraid, he admitted to both women, afraid that opening our sanctuary to others might somehow diminish what we've built here. I understand fear, Charlotte replied, watching their daughter work. I let it drive me to destroy something beautiful because I couldn't control it. But looking at Sophia now, seeing how she's learned to share her garden without losing her sense of security, perhaps that's the greatest lesson we can offer other families. Livia observed this exchange with profound recognition of how far they'd come. The very forces that had once threatened to tear them apart, fear, control, professional ambition, were being transformed into tools for healing. Their personal journey had become a blueprint for helping others navigate similar challenges. You know what this means, she said, gesturing to their flourishing garden where new butterfly species appeared daily. Our sanctuary isn't just ours anymore. It's becoming exactly what Sophia drew, a place where different families can heal together while maintaining their own safe spaces. The sun set over the lake, casting golden light across their expanded garden. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they balanced privacy with accessibility, corporate structure with emotional healing. But tonight, watching Sophia teach both her parents the proper way to press flowers for her journal, Livia understood that their greatest misunderstandings had led to their most profound insights. The first test of their rebuilt trust came during the Healing Center's inaugural family session. Charlotte had requested to participate not as a board member or consultant, but as a mother seeking reconciliation with her child. The request presented a delicate balance between professional boundaries and personal healing. "We've established strict protocols about family members serving as staff," Lucas pointed out during their planning meeting. "Making an exception could compromise the center's integrity." Livia considered this while reviewing Charlotte's formal application. "Perhaps we're approaching this from the wrong direction. Instead of seeing Charlotte's involvement as an exception, we could document it as our pilot case study, an example of how complex family dynamics can be transformed through structured environmental therapy." They convened in the garden's newly designated family counseling space, where Sophia had already arranged her pressed flower collection as a welcome gesture. Charlotte arrived precisely on time, her corporate polish softened by genuine vulnerability. "I've reviewed all the documentation from the past year," Charlotte began, indicating Livia's research files spread before them. "Every butterfly sighting, every nightmare, every milestone. I thought I was protecting Sophia from becoming trapped in traditional roles, but instead I trapped her in my own fears." Livia initiated their established trust-building protocol, developed through months of careful observation. "Sophia, would you like to show your mother the new butterfly species you discovered yesterday?" The child approached cautiously, yet with growing confidence. "It's called a butterfly," she explained, showing Charlotte her latest journal entry. "Its wings look broken and ugly at first, but when it flies, the pattern makes perfect sense." "Like how some things need to fall apart before they can become beautiful again?" Charlotte asked softly, beginning to understand the metaphorical language her daughter had developed through their garden therapy. Lucas observed this interaction with measured optimism. His own journey of trust required balancing protective instincts with the recognition that healing demanded calculated risks. "I've been documenting something remarkable," Livia shared, opening her research notes. "Each time Charlotte has attended Sophia's garden sessions consistently, we've noted a 40% decrease in anxiety indicators. The key factor isn't the quantity of time spent together, but the quality of engaged presence." They proceeded through their therapeutic protocol, first tending to new plantings together, then documenting butterfly observations, and finally sharing pressed flower art, each activity designed to rebuild trust through shared purpose rather than forced interaction. "I've learned something profound," Charlotte reflected as they completed their session. "In the corporate world, trust is based on proven performance metrics. But here, in this garden, trust grows like these flowers, requiring patience, consistent care, and acceptance that some days bring more blooms than others." Livia documented this insight, recognizing its significance for their research. "That's exactly the paradigm shift we're studying, how natural environments facilitate emotional honesty in ways traditional corporate or therapeutic settings often can't." As their session concluded, Sophia presented Charlotte with a pressed flower for her own journal. "It's from the bush we planted together," she explained. "Even though you can't be here every day, you're still part of our garden story." The moment crystallized their progress, not a complete resolution, but a genuine step towards sustainable healing. Charlotte's willingness to participate as a client rather than an authority figure demonstrated a profound shift in her understanding of power dynamics. Lucas, watching his daughter share her garden wisdom with both mother figures in her life, recognized that trust wasn't about erasing past hurts, but about creating space for new growth alongside old scars. They had discovered that rebuilding trust, like nurturing a garden, required accepting that some seasons would bring storms, others abundance, but all were part of the growing process. The ultimate test of acceptance and forgiveness materialized during the Healing Center's first public presentation. Before an audience of potential investors, therapeutic professionals, and families seeking admission, their unconventional family unit prepared to share their journey of transformation. Our story, Lucas began, addressing the gathered crowd from the garden's central pavilion, begins with a lost child following a butterfly. What emerged was a profound lesson about the nature of family and forgiveness. Charlotte sat in the front row, her corporate poise softened by newfound humility. Livia stood at the podium, her research documentation displayed on screens around the garden, while Sophia arranged pressed flowers along the presentation table. Traditional family therapy, Livia explained, often focuses on verbal processing in controlled environments. Our approach recognizes that healing happens in moments of natural connection. She gestured to their flourishing garden, where butterflies danced between carefully tended flowers. We discovered that transformation, like nature, cannot be forced, it can only be nurtured. The presentation progressed through their documented journey, the initial crisis, the garden's destruction, the corporate battles, and ultimately the emergence of their unique healing methodology. What captured the audience's attention, however, wasn't the clinical data or impressive outcomes, it was the authentic demonstration of forgiveness unfolding before them. During the question and answer session, a therapist raised the challenging issue: how do you address the potential conflict of interest in having both the victim and perpetrator of corporate manipulation involved in the center's operation? Before either Lucas or Livia could respond, Sophia approached the microphone. "May I answer?" she asked, clutching her butterfly journal. With her parents' encouraging nods, she continued, "In our garden, we learn that butterflies don't care about people's mistakes. They come to any flower that offers nectar. My family is like that. Now we focus on the nectar, not the thorns." Charlotte stood, moving to join her daughter at the podium. "What my brilliant child means," she added, her voice steady despite her evident emotion, "is that true healing requires us to move beyond simple categories of victim and perpetrator. This center exists because people I tried to destroy chose to see me as more than my worst actions." Livia shared her research conclusions. "Our data shows that incorporating the full spectrum of family dynamics, including those who have caused harm but seek redemption, creates more robust and sustainable healing environments." Forgiveness, when earned through consistent effort and genuine remorse, becomes part of the therapeutic process itself. Lucas concluded the presentation by addressing the underlying question of authenticity. Every family's journey through trauma is unique. What we offer here isn't a prescription for healing, but a space where transformation is possible. Our own story of forgiveness serves not as a template, but as proof that even the deepest wounds can become sources of growth. As the audience dispersed to tour the facilities, their family lingered in the butterfly garden that had started it all. Charlotte helped Sophia press a new flower specimen, while Lucas and Livia documented the day's observations in their research journals. "I never expected forgiveness," Charlotte admitted quietly, watching a monarch butterfly land their shared project. "I'm not sure I deserve it." "Deserving isn't the point," Livia responded, her years of both professional training and personal experience evident in her words. "Forgiveness is like these gardens. It grows not because we deserve it, but because nurturing life is more powerful than nurturing grievances." Sophia, wise beyond her years, added the final pressed flower to their presentation display. "Look," she pointed out, "this one has healed wings. Even after it was broken, it learned to fly again." Their journey of acceptance and forgiveness had transformed not just their family, but had created a model for others seeking their own path to healing. In their garden, among the butterflies and blooms, they had discovered that sometimes the most profound forgiveness grows from the soil of the deepest hurt. The resolution of their complex family dynamic crystallized during the Healing Center's first anniversary celebration. The lakeside gardens had flourished beyond their initial vision, now hosting multiple butterfly species and families in various stages of healing. On this significant morning, The three adults gathered in Lucas's study to finalize arrangements that would formally establish their unconventional family structure. The board has approved the complete restructuring, Lucas announced, reviewing the documents before them. The Healing Center will become an independent foundation with equal governance rights distributed among us. Charlotte, your corporate expertise will guide our expansion initiatives. Livia, your research program will form the therapeutic cornerstone. Charlotte examined the legal framework they'd crafted. Joint custody arrangements integrated with the center's operational schedule. Transparent documentation of all family interactions. Professional boundaries clearly delineated from personal relationships. She paused, allowing herself a moment of recognition. We've created something unprecedented. The Harvard Child Development Center has expressed interest in implementing our model nationwide, Livia added, indicating her latest research findings. They're particularly impressed with our documented success rates in complex family reunification cases. Their discussion was interrupted by Sophia's entrance, her butterfly journal now expanded into multiple volumes. The new chrysalis is opening, she announced with quiet authority. All of them need to be there. It's a family moment. In the garden, they gathered around the carefully monitored chrysalis. Other families participating in the center's programs respectfully maintained their distance, recognizing the significance of this private moment for the center's founding family. Do you remember our first butterfly? Sophia asked, her hand finding both Livia's and Charlotte's while Lucas documented the emergence. We were all broken then, trying to hurt each other because we were scared. And now, Charlotte prompted softly, her professional polish softened by genuine maternal warmth. Now we're like our garden, Sophia replied with the wisdom that had guided their healing. Different flowers growing together, making space for all the butterflies to find their way home. The chrysalis began to split, revealing iridescent wings still damp with possibility. As they watched the butterflies' emergence, each adult reflected on their own transformation. Lucas, who had once measured success in profit margins and market share, now understood that his greatest achievement was this harmonious blend of personal fulfillment and professional purpose. Charlotte, reformed from corporate raider to collaborative partner, had discovered that true power lay not in control but in contribution to collective growth. Livia, who had feared her past would forever define her future, had transformed her experiences into a methodology for healing that would benefit families beyond their own. The newly emerged butterfly stretched its wings, displaying a stunning pattern of interwoven colors. Look, Sophia pointed out, it has all our favorite colors together, like a family portrait in wings. But their moment of reflection was interrupted by Clara's discreet arrival. The press is waiting for the anniversary ceremony, she reminded them. And the governor's office has confirmed their intention to fund satellite centers across the state. Tell them we'll be there shortly, Lucas responded, his attention still focused on the butterfly's first tentative movements. Some moments can't be rushed. As they watched the butterfly take flight, joining others in their flourishing garden, they recognized that they had achieved something rare and precious, a resolution that honored every member's growth while creating space for continued evolution. The corporate battles had transformed into collaborative ventures. Personal antagonisms had yielded to mutual respect. Most importantly, their determination to protect Sophia had expanded into a mission to help other families navigate their own paths to healing. We should document this moment, Livia suggested, reaching for her research journal. Not just for the clinical records, but for our family history. Already done, Sophia announced, displaying her latest journal entry. She had captured not just the butterfly's emergence, but the subtle expressions of peace on each adult's face, a child's testament to the power of chosen family. The Healing Center's first anniversary ceremony showcased not just institutional success, but profound personal transformation in each family member. Lucas delivered the keynote address, his traditional corporate demeanor now balanced with authentic emotional intelligence. A year ago, he addressed the gathered audience. I measured success through market valuations and quarterly reports. Today I measure it in moments: a child's breakthrough, a family's reconciliation, a butterfly's first flight. Our center's financial sustainability proves that corporate excellence and emotional intelligence can coexist harmoniously. Charlotte, who once weaponized corporate power, now channeled her strategic brilliance into expanding the center's reach. Her presentation detailed their nationwide implementation strategy, emphasizing accessibility across socioeconomic boundaries. The true transformation, she explained, requires dismantling the very barriers I once exploited. Our success lies not in exclusivity, but in creating spaces where every family can heal. Livia's evolution manifested in her groundbreaking research publication. Her methodology, combining environmental therapy with family systems theory, had earned recognition from leading psychiatric institutions. More significantly, she had transformed her own past trauma into a force for healing, proving that wounded healers could guide others toward wholeness. Most remarkable was Sophia's growth. The frightened child who once followed butterflies to escape loneliness had blossomed into a confident young person who helped new families acclimate to the center. Her butterfly journals, now used as therapeutic tools, demonstrated how children could process complex emotions through connection with nature. During the ceremony's closing moments, each family member contributed to planting a new butterfly garden section. Lucas provided the vision and resources, Charlotte applied her organizational expertise to the design, Livia incorporated therapeutic elements, and Sophia selected flowers that would attract specific butterfly species. This garden, Sophia explained to the attending families, shows how different people can grow together. Like how Daddy learned to care about feelings as much as business, how Mummy learned that love isn't a competition, and how Livia showed us that helping others heal can heal yourself too. Their collaborative planting symbolized how far they had come from adversaries fighting for control to partners nurturing growth, from broken individuals to a cohesive family unit that made space for continuous evolution. The Healing Center's anniversary celebration culminated in an evening ceremony that embodied their core message through meaningful action. As twilight descended, hundreds of lanterns illuminated the garden paths, while families gathered for what had become their signature ritual, the release of rehabilitated butterflies. Lucas stood before the assembled crowd, his corporate authority now gracefully balanced with emotional awareness. Our journey began with a single butterfly leading a lost child to safety. Today we release these butterflies as symbols of transformation, not just for our family, but for every family seeking renewal. Sophia, demonstrating remarkable poise, guided each participating family through the release protocol she had helped develop. Remember, she instructed, when you open your butterfly container, make a wish for your family's future. The butterflies carry our hopes as they fly. Charlotte and Livia worked in synchronized harmony, documenting each release for both research purposes and family memory books. Their collaborative efficiency demonstrated how former adversaries could become essential partners in fostering growth. Each butterfly species has its own migration pattern, Livia explained to the gathered families, yet they all share this garden as a sanctuary. Like the families here, they maintain their unique identities while contributing to our collective harmony. The evening's profound message crystallized as participants began sharing their stories. A corporate executive spoke of reconnecting with his children after witnessing Lucas's transformation. A single mother described finding strength in Charlotte's journey from control to contribution. A troubled teenager revealed how Livia's past helped him envision a future beyond his circumstances. As the final butterflies took flight, their wings catching the last rays of sunset, Sophia made an observation that captured their ultimate message: look how the butterflies don't fly away from each other, but dance together in the sky. That's what healed families do. They stay close while giving each other space to soar. The garden paths filled with families walking together, sharing stories and supporting each other's journeys. Their healing center had become more than a therapeutic facility or corporate venture. It was a living demonstration that transformation required not just individual change, but the courage to create spaces where others could grow alongside you. In the gentle evening air, surrounded by the fruits of their shared labor, they had proven that the most powerful messages aren't spoken but lived, day by day, choice by choice, in the patient nurturing of new growth from wounded earth. When was the last time you had to choose between security and transformation like our characters? Sometimes the bravest decisions are the hardest ones. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this story of healing, forgiveness, and unconventional family resonated with your own experiences. If you enjoyed this story of how love and trust can transform even the deepest wounds into sources of strength, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you meaningful stories that celebrate the power of human connection and resilience every day. Your story matters too. If this message touched your heart, share it with others who might need reminding that it's never too late for transformation. Every share helps spread hope and healing to someone who might be struggling with their own butterfly moment of change. Together, we can create more gardens where broken wings learn to fly again.